This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, but rocking a beautiful, I love Toronto background because, I consider Toronto my real home. But here we are, February 2nd, 2025. And, splat from the past host, Tommy Kovac. It's that often throws guest ideas back forth with me, and he has connected me with a wonderfully talented individual here today that has a career spanning way back, despite the fact that she's only 39 years old. She just celebrated her 39th again last month. Folks, I saw her in Knives Out at the theater in 2019, and I'm familiar with her in a lot of other films as well. I give you the awesomely talented Kay Callan. How do you do, Kay?
Hi, thank you. That was a very nice introduction.
Yeah, yeah, I love your background. You get your light thing set up. I guess you do a lot of addition. I love the fact that you're still very active.
Well, I think every actor is as active as possible at all times. I remember, do you know Hal Landon, who was on Barney Miller?
Yes, I remember Bernie Miller.
Well, back when he was on Barney Miller, and Barney Miller was a big hot show, and he worked, they shot 23 episodes every year, and then they'd be off and come back on. And during the summers, he would go do a movie or do theater or whatever. And somebody interviewed him and said, don't you need to rest in between? And he's like, I've been resting until I got this job. I'm never going to retire. It's like actors just want to work and they want to work as long as they can. So it's all about if you can find somebody to choose you.
There you go. There you go. Well, I was reading up on you, and it's funny. When I was 5 years old, I don't read. That would have been 1977 for me when I turned five, and I remember very little at 5 years old. But according to what I read up on you, you knew you wanted to be an actress at 5 years old.
I think I wanted to be an actress before that. I mean, my first appearance actually was as the baby Jesus. And when my brother and sister they were in Catholic school and I was a baby and it was the Christmas pageant and, I was a baby Jesus. So that was my first moment. And I suspect even from then.
Oh, there you go. Well, what an awesome figure to start out with, our Lord and
A
Savior.
wonderful role.
Yeah, yeah.
No lines, but I was very important to the story.
Well, you were the most important part.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, but nonetheless, I found that interesting because I remember one or two things back then, but I don't remember significant things like that. So, but that
Well,
would
I
have been
don't think I don't think it was in my mind I'm going to be an actor, but I do remember, acting out. Did you see Better Man this year? It's a wonderful film.
we
Uh,
didn't get that here, but I know what you're
Well,
talking
maybe it will
about.
come. It hasn't, it's just now coming out. But anyway, that the kid in that, is like singing and dancing on the furniture in the living room. And I remember doing that. I'd see, my sister took me to the movies all the time because she was a movie fan. And I saw all these Betty Grable movies and all those musicals. And I would come home and I'd get the record album and I would play with it and I would sing with it. And I was singing and dancing and, putting on shows in my backyard. So I don't think my thing was, and I'm going to be an actor. It was just like, this is what I do. And that's kind of how I feel about you. This is what I do.
Actually, Better Man. Yes, I think we did. That's where it's like the
Monkey.
biopic where the guy is the chimpanzee.
It's so good.
Yeah,
It's so
no, I
good.
just I just haven't seen it. No, we did get that.
I think you'll like it. I
Mhm.
was a little put off by
Robbie
it when I
Robinson,
read about it
Robertson. Yeah.
because well, first I didn't know him, but mostly I thought that's just too weird, this monkey thing. But then when I saw it, I was just like, oh my God, this is, we've seen so many musical biopics, and this is and they're all the same, they're all the same. It's the father's not there. He always wants to do this. He's successful, then drugs, then dive, and then up, and so forth. So to find a new movie, a new way to tell this story, it was just really, I loved it so much.
You want me to tell you, you should see the the musical parody biopic Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
Oh yeah, I'll have to write
Yeah.
it down.
It's got John C. Riley in it. I've
I
interviewed,
love John C. Riley. Oh my gosh, I love him. Did you
okay,
see him in the
this
Lakers
movie,
movie?
huh?
Did you see him in the Lakers miniseries, that thing?
No, I actually my TV, I just have it set up to watch my Blu-rays. I don't really watch
Right.
television,
Oh, that's too bad.
but it's called Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. And in it, John C. Riley plays this it's a fictional character, Dewey Cox. And they go through all the tropes that happen and like Walk the Line and Ray and all those. And I'll
Oh, I
give you a
look
little
forward to that.
I'll give you a little taste of what happens. They they show him as a boy, and their father is really behind his brother because his brother could play the piano, and all of this. And his brother I actually had on the show, the child actor, although he's not a child actor now, but
Yeah,
I've had him on here. But they always have
John C. Riley's brother, or the
no,
brother
no,
of the
the
person, the
character
brother
Dewey
of the
Cox.
character. Yeah,
So they show his childhood, and there's always a tragedy that happens. And this is so absurd. And I know what they were doing. So they were doing all this outrageous stuff on the farm that would be dangerous. Like, and anyway, they decide, oh, like they were picking up rattlesnakes and stuff like that and all this. And finally, the one thing that Dewey Cox as a boy says we shouldn't do is machete battles. you know. So they said, "Oh no, nobody ever got hurt doing machete
oh
battles." So
gosh.
they're clashing these machetes, and the thing slides off the machete, and all you see is goes like this. You don't see any blood or anything. You just see a reaction, just double take by this donkey or something like that. And his brother is like this, and you just see the reaction of Dewey. You see the kid cut in half. His pants are still standing in the air. And he's down there and he goes, Dewey. And he goes, Nate, I've been halved. And he goes, you better get Pa. I'm, and blah, 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 blah. He goes, you got to be double great for the both of us. So, anyway, the last thing you see when he runs off shot is like the legs fall down the ground. He goes, oh, shit. The next shot, you got the doctor coming out of the room and he goes, I'm sorry, I could not get the top half of Nate's body sewn onto the bottom half of Nate's body. And his father goes, speak English, Doc. And he goes, I'm sorry, he didn't make it. And the mother starts crying and wailing and um and the father, it's always common in these movies, the father's gonna be angry, at the son that makes it. He goes, this is all your fault, Dewey Cox. And the mother goes, it's not his fault. Father turns and goes, he cut him in half with a machete. And he looks at me and goes, you're not half the boy Nate was. You're not even half the boy the top half of Nate was before you cut him in half. Dewey Cox goes, you mean I'm not even quarter the man Nate was? It's absurd. It goes through all the things. He has like three marriages in it, you know. And Tristan Wing becomes one of his marriages in it when he gets it. This is where I say it's so absurd, because every time, the wife is home and he goes out and he cheats. And of course, Jenna Fisher plays this female singer that's supposed to be a churchgoer and this and that, and they end up connecting and they get married. So they're in the hotel room, they're on their honeymoon, and suddenly you hear, hello, and then his other wife runs in there. And Kristen Wiig like throws a stop to go, and he goes, says her name, and she goes, Dewey. And Jenna Fisher goes, who's this? And he goes, it's not what you think it is. And she goes, well, it has to be who it thinks it is to somebody. But the biggest argument, he's running after Kristen Wiig, and and he's trying to plead his case, and this is the dumbest argument. He goes, how did he word this? He goes, dude, okay, this is all my fault. You try to tell me you do nothing wrong. And she goes, you cheated on me, Dewey. And he goes, oh, okay, I cheated. Well, what about that time when you woke up in the middle of the night and you drank up all the milk, and whenever I get up to have my cereal, there's no milk left? And she goes, Dewey, you cheated on me. And he goes, okay, I'm a cheater, but you could just drink up all the milk. I'm like, and they go through all of this as bandmates are hilarious. They do the concert stuff. I even have the soundtrack album. And they do everything. He gets hooked on drugs. They have various actors play different, like Frankie Muniz playing Buddy Holly. And they have somebody playing Elvis in it, and they're very outlandish caricatures of the actual people. And they run into the Beatles, John C. Reilly, you guys could be as big as the Monkees. So watch Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox
I
story. I
know, I
think
really do.
you'll have a big laugh at it. And the kid that gets half there, Nate, um, I had the actor on my show and had a big chuckle about that. So yeah, but John C. Reilly plays Dewey Cox, and they go through all of the tropes, and I thought it was brilliant. There's nothing that they miss in this entire movie that you haven't seen in one of these docudramas, except that you haven't seen it told the way Dewey Cox tells it. Oh man, John C. Reilly was so good in it. So yeah, but anyway, I hope you enjoy it when you do see it because it's a hilarious movie, and they created their own musical numbers and whatnot for it, and it's a very funny movie. Yeah. But anyway, I saw we're going to start more recently because I want to start with Knives Out because I saw that in the movie theater when it came out. That was one of those movies that you didn't know it was going to have the following that it ended up having, and I remember when I saw it, the theater had quite a lot of people in it, and it was a nice murder mystery, kind of in the fashion of Clue. You had a great ensemble cast in it.
Fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course it spawned the sequel as well. So I remember seeing that in the theater, and they had you were done up this awesome looking costume. Um, are you surprised that the film has got such a quick reception that it has?
No, because it was first of all, it was an amazing cast, and it was such a clever script. He's such a wonderful script writer. From his first film, he has never had a film that didn't go to Toronto. I think his first film went to Toronto. So he's just a superstar director, writer, nicest person ever. And the cast was just came together beautifully on that.
Absolutely. Go bring it up here because I got your filmography right up here. But yeah, Ryan Johnson. Yeah, this was one of his best movies too. But yeah, you had a great cast in this movie, and of course, I like that you play great Nana. But yeah, you had a lot of great cast members in this: Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Jamie Lee Curtis, Don Johnson, Tony Collette,
Yeah.
Catherine Langford is in that as well, and of course Frank Oz. A wonderful
Right,
cast.
right, right. I think I have in my mind, maybe he came in at the last minute. I can't remember. Um, I kind of think he came in, maybe somebody else was supposed to do it and they got sick and he came in, but I can't remember for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I did not know all of his films that came to the Toronto Film Festival. I know my friend Lisa Langlois says I need to go to the Toronto Film Festival at some point, and whenever I can get to do that. Christopher Plummer, of course, was in this too. This was not long before he passed away, but nonetheless, did you get to be allowed to keep your costume?
No, that costume was literally about five coats that they sewed together. And no, I don't think I would have had much use for it. I wouldn't have mind having the glasses though.
Oh, the glasses were really cool, you know. I was looking you up before the interview, and there's a picture of you with Catherine Langford, and it's like night and day, you know. You're standing right out with the costume, the glasses, and it's so outlandish, you know, and you 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 stick out like a sore thumb in the photos, even the group photo.
Yeah.
Any of the casts that stand out to you, like in terms of memories on the set of that movie? And also working with Ryan Johnson.
Well, basically, I spent more time with my makeup crew than anybody else. I was 4 hours in the chair every morning. And so that's where I made my most enduring relationships. I'm still close with all those people. Ryan was just is just great. I've since worked for him. He has a television series, a streaming series called Poker Face. And so
Okay.
I'm in the fifth episode of Poker Face. And
Hmm.
so he's just the nicest and a really good director, and he does wonderful projects, you know.
Absolutely. And of course, your career dates way back, but your filmography started way back in 1970. Of course, that would have been 2 years prior to me being, but you were in a movie called Joe in 1970. You got to work with future Rocky director John G. Alvestein.
Avildsen,
Avildsen. Okay, sorry, I got
Avild,
that. I messed
Avild,
that up.
Avild, Avildsen. He's now deceased. This was his first film other than porn movies. He had done porn movies before,
Hmm.
and it was a very low budget film that I think every actor in New York City went up for. The that when I went into the audition room that morning, it's like there were literally actors laying all over the floor. I mean, there was everyone there. And I looked around and I'm like, I can't stay for this. You know, I have auditions for commercials and I support three kids and I can't stay here for this. And so I came back at the end of the day and there was just one person left and I auditioned. And so yeah, that was Susan Sarandon's first film too, Peter Boyle and Susan. So that was all the beginnings of us. But actually, my first on camera was before that.
Yeah, you
It
did a lot of television, yes.
no, yes,
No?
but the first thing that I did was back in Dallas. There was a show on called Route 66 that
Oh
traveled
yeah,
all over
yeah, yeah.
America. And so they came to town and they were casting, and I got cast in that. So that was my first really on-screen performance, other than commercials that I did in Dallas, which was a whole different thing.
Yeah, I have your film stuff up here right now, but yeah, you did a lot of television uh as well. So yeah, I knew you had started in TV before Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Liberty, another one that
Yeah,
you had
I don't, I think, I wonder, I must have seen Lady Liberty at the time, but I certainly haven't seen it since then. And then there's another film, I don't think it's on my filmography because I got cut out of it. It was with Sophia Loren called Mortadella. I don't think that's on there. I can't remember.
I'm
But that
looking at the
also,
Wikipedia, but yeah, I'm pretty sure if I looked on IMDb, I'd probably be a little different story.
well, yeah, IMDb has more. I just don't remember whether that's on there or not. But, actors do so many jobs before anybody has ever heard their name.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you started for, as far as your film stuff goes, it's the 70s. Of course, that was my birth decade.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is true that Joe was the first film.
Yeah. I'm gonna go through some of these with you, like A Touch of Class. You're A
Right. That
Touch
was
of
really
Class.
exciting. I got to go to Spain for that, and I got to work with Glenda Jackson and George Siegel. That was a wonderful experience.
Yeah. And another one on here, Fast Break.
Yes, with Gabe Kaplan.
Gabe Kaplan. Yep. Um, this one here I have not seen, but I'm looking at the poster for it and I'm like, man, this looks like it's funny in the same vein as Slapshot.
I can't remember if I know it's funny. And remember, he was the star of Welcome Back, Kotter, a big television series. And
Yes.
that's how he then had the film career. And that was funny, with John Travolta and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. But then you get to a very high profile film called The Onion Field.
Yes, I played Jimmy Wood's
With
mom in that. But
yeah,
Such a Class won Best Film. And The Onion Field was high profile, but I believe Touch of Class was higher profile. Although certainly, The Onion Field was a very sober film.
yeah. Touch of Class was high profile, but I just The Onion Field, I still hear about that,
Did you
of
see
course,
it? Did you see it?
I haven't seen The Onion Field, but it's got James Woods in it.
Yeah, it's a true story about a police. First of all, Joseph Wambaugh wrote it, and he had been a policeman. And this is a story about uh, two policemen who are, I think they stop, I can't remember exactly, but I believe they stop someone on the side of the road, and then the robbers overtake them. And the police are being held by the robbers while traffic is going by on both sides and doesn't even notice what's going on. James Woods plays a killer.
Yeah, James Woods was I saw him on the news during those unfortunate California fires, and it's very heartbreaking. Now, American Gigolo, I have seen that. Although I every time I hear that song by Blondie, Call Me, I think of this film. And American Gigolo, of course, directed by Paul Schrader. And I've interviewed a few people that's worked with Paul. What was your experiences like with Paul Schrader?
Oh, I thought he was great. I don't remember anything of one way or the other, except that he was very nice to work with and very, what's the word I want to say? Inclusive, very inclusive.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, American Gigolo celebrates its 45th anniversary, which is strange considering you're 39 years old, huh? But yeah, 45 years, and this film is still remembered. What do you think about that when a film like that hits a milestone like that? You look back, did you, when you done the film, did you ever think that anything is going to have this kind of legacy, or is it just kind of, you go, you do your thing, you don't think anything of it? What do you think all these years later of these legacies?
Well, I think many films have loyal followings. And I wasn't aware until I heard from you that this was the 45th anniversary, but it had been brought up in my mind recently because Richard Gere is in a film this year. And I
Hmm.
heard him on the Hollywood Chatter podcast talking about the film. And then he was talking about his career and how he came to American Gigolo and everything. I really enjoyed working with him. He was already a star, but he was not the big star that I think maybe his big film that made him really most visible might have been Officer and a Gentleman.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, I had a really good time working with both of them. It was an
Yeah.
interesting film, and I think one of the reasons it's remembered is because Richard was big at the time, and there was like a big poster of him in front of this window, and I think maybe he didn't have any clothes on, and I know there was like big hoo-ha over Richard Gere,
Yeah. And
who
of
is
course,
I think a Buddhist. I think it's really interesting. He says he is.
well, I mean, you got Lon Hutton in that as well, and I always liked her work in movies, and of course, Richard Gere's starred opposite of a lot of highlighted leading ladies, and Lon Hutton, I think, ranks as one of those big ones for him.
I don't think so. I think Lauren Hutton, she was a big model. She was a very important model, and I don't think she really did that many films. I don't know. I haven't looked at her IMDb, but I don't think so. And I believe at the time, I believe at the time Richard might have been a bigger star, but I'm not sure. But I know that I don't think she has a very deep resume for
I
film.
agree, but I was definitely familiar with her since the 80s, so
Well, but
yeah.
because of her modeling, I mean, I think that's where I knew of her before I knew of her as an actor. There were like Candice Bergen was a model before she was an actress.
Yeah, but I was like growing up in the 80s, like I didn't pay attention to the modeling and this and that, so it would have been film that I would have known her. Like I knew her, for example, in Once Bitten, there, an early film with Jim Carrey and whatnot. So
Oh, well, then maybe she did a bunch of films that I just
oh
never saw.
yeah, oh yeah, she's done quite a few films, but nevertheless, th that same year, speaking of it, and I didn't know this until looking at your filmography, A Change of Seasons, also celebrating its 45th anniversary. You're in some great company in that film.
Right, Shirley
Shirley MacLaine.
MacLaine.
Um,
I keep wanting to say Shirley Jones, and I knew it wasn't Shirley Jones. Shirley MacLaine, Anthony Hopkins. Yeah, it was
yeah,
great to work with, to have
Bo
worked with
Derek.
Anthony. Bo Derek. Yeah.
Yeah, Bo Derek. Yeah, Shirley MacLaine. How impre like she worked with Alfred Hitchcock, and
She's worked with everyone.
in fact, at Christmas time, I watched The Apartment, which you can watch at Christmas or New Year's. It fits the bill quite well, and it's you look at her and what a long career she has had.
Yes, she started on Broadway.
Uh-huh. But she was in The Trouble with Harry. I've never met Shirley MacLaine, but if I ever did, I'd ask her what it was like working with Alfred Hitchcock because I've had his granddaughter on here in tribute to him.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. And to talk about him with somebody that is in his bloodline was amazing.
Did
But
she even know him very well?
yeah, yeah, she was on the set for the Birds, but
That's a terrible thing.
she was on set. She talked about um, what it was like visiting him and what it was like as him as a grandfather and
And what was he like as a grandfather? Was he ever around?
he was very, very polite with fans because he saw them as the people that she said often what happens, she said that she would get asked at school to get her to sign stuff by him, and she'd get annoyed by it. She said that um, she put it up to Alfred, and Alfred would say, "I'm trying to think how she worded it," but Alfred Hitchcock would say, "Yeah, they put food on the table or whatever." Those are the fans that are leaking the autographs.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah, so it that was an amazing interview to do. We did our top five favorite Hitchcock movies, she and I, and Psycho was the only one that landed on both of our list, but in number three for both of us. But um, I had that was 2016. I had her on. That was when I was doing them at the station, and I remember my program director at the station was like, "How did you get Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter on your show?" And yeah, I had Audrey Hepburn's eldest son on here too, so uh, that was uh, that was amazing because you get to hear about the human side of what these people were like, and that's always an amazing thing. But do you have any stories about being on set for Change of Seasons?
Well, not really. I remember that I went to Vermont or someplace to shoot, and we shot my first scene, which was the scene at the basketball game, where we realized that he's having an affair with Bo Derek, and then for various reasons, they ultimately reshot it back here at the end of the shoot. They redid those first few scenes.
Bo Derek was in a movie that we shot right here in Fredericton back, I think it was 2000. And my brother worked at a shoe store that her handlers had brought her in because it was during the winter time.
Mhm.
And everybody was just in awe of her, I guess, you know. She's
What was
aged
the
very,
film? What was the film?
let me see. I'm trying winter something. Let me see. Because Paul Lynch had directed it.
Oh,
Uh,
it's the comedian.
no, Paul Lynch directed the Prom Night.
Oh, okay.
Uh, yeah, he's a Canadian filmmaker, and
Right, right.
yeah. So let me see. Try to see what the name of that was. Um, I'm I don't think I'm. Oh, Frozen with Fear. Paul Lynch. Yep. Shot. I guess it was released in 2001.
I
I
wonder,
did
wonder
did
what she's doing today.
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if she's still good.
Oh, I'm sure she does. She could not look bad.
No, no,
Beautiful
absolutely.
woman.
Yeah. You get to work with Garth James Woods again in Fast Walking.
I actually had worked with James Woods back in New York. Actually, I'd already shot Joe, but it hadn't come out yet. And we were in Baltimore, I think. We had gone to shoot a bank commercial. We were both in different segments of this bank commercial. And so
Uh-huh.
I knew him from that. And then then we met each other again on the Onion Field and then on Fast Walking. And it
Okay.
was so great to watch his career. And I can't remember the name of the film. It was either a film or a television show where he played the head of the guy who created AA. It was called probably Joe something. I don't know. But anyway, I think he won a big award for it, but a really good actor.
And there's one person I want to bring up. You were in the Unborn. I always liked Brooke Adams. You got any stories about her?
Did I work with Brooke Adams? Oh, Brooke Adams. I'm thinking of Brooke Shields. Yes, Brooke Adams. I liked her a lot. We were in a horror movie together.
The
I was
Unborn,
her
yeah.
mother. Yeah.
I first come to know her from the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is one of those remakes that actually did really well. And she did this thing with her eyes where she twirled them around in circles in their socket. And I guess it's something the director just discovered she could do and got her to do it in a scene. Yeah.
You can really do that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing to see, and he mentioned the commentary track. It's like, can you do that on screen? She's like, yeah, and yeah,
I have to look at that. That's funny.
yeah. I when Donald Sutherland who passed away, he was in that. They played it last summer down at the Under the Stars Classic Film Series here, and I went and attended that, and I was very attentive to that scene because I was like, I'd never seen anybody since do that. So, but
What a talent.
oh,
What
I
a
like,
skill to have.
yeah, I always liked Brooke Adams. You know, you don't see a lot of her
She's a
now.
really nice actress. She's a really good actress. She also did Broadway. She started on Broadway.
Yeah, but you did a ton of television. Now, I don't watch TV, but growing up, I did watch TV. So you got a lot of TV here. I'm definitely familiar with, and some of the ones that come to mind here, One Day at a Time. I remember that was one that we watched. And of course, Barney Miller. And let me see. Police Squad, you're mentioned for that. Any uh, Leslie Nielsen stories?
No, but I remember the audition for Police Squad. In the script, my daughter is kidnapped. And so there's this scene where the police have come and the kidnapper calls, and I'm on the phone, and the police keep saying, keep him going, keep him going. But anyway, in the audition, this was way before we had cell phones. We just had big old phones. And so in the audition, I brought a big purse and I had a real regular phone in my purse. And so in the audition was just that monologue of me on the phone. And so it was up to me to start the whole thing and just to do it. And so I went in and I didn't talk to them very much ahead of time. I just was very quiet. And then they said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yes." And so then we started and I heard the phone ring and I just opened my purse and I pulled out this thing and I answered and I did the whole thing. And it was like, they didn't laugh. They never laughed. They never said anything about it. I got the job, but it was like, these are police squad people. They didn't even laugh. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah. Do you find it difficult to do comedy?
No. Why
No,
would you ask?
the reason why I asked that, you mentioned they didn't laugh. Because I remember the story of Rodney Dangerfield when he did Caddyshack. He was so used to people reacting to him that when he did Caddyshack and nobody was reacting, and Harold Ramis, the director, would have to tell him, he's like, no, 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 we can't
Can't
laugh. We
can't
have,
make noise. Yeah, but this was just at the audition, and the thing is,
yeah.
they didn't even say
Oh,
anything afterwards. They didn't even once it was done, they didn't remark on it. And I remember there was another audition I had once, where it was. I'm trying to remember something over MTM, but I was to play a therapist.
uh-huh,
She was an eyeball therapist, and she could look in your eyes and see what was going on. She would just read your irises. And it also was comedy. But anyway, I thought this would be so funny if so I decided that if I had a piece of jewelry that had an eyeball on it, it would just be great. But I didn't have anything like that. So I went to a jewelry store and like an occult place where they would have weird things. And
uh-huh.
they had necklaces and things like that that had, eyeballs, but they were very expensive. And I just needed it for like an hour. And so I said, could I rent this? And they said, yes. So I took this thing and I made a pin out of it in the lapel of my suit. And then I wore a scarf around it so that the other people at the audition wouldn't see how clever I was with this eyeball. So I go in and I'm doing the audition, and at an appropriate moment, I flung my scarf back so you could see, and then I did the whole thing. She didn't think
There
it
you
was funny
go.
at all. She just was like, after, and of course, I couldn't leave it alone at the end after it was over. I said, did you see my eyeball? She was just like, get out of here. But I had a really good time with it.
You've done so much television. I'm going to get ask you what your most memorable television shows that you've done is, but I am going to ask you about one thing in particular because I remember in the 80s I used to love watching Night Court, and I guess you were in an episode of that. I love Night Court. I thought it was hilarious. I think John Larroquette was he never failed. Of course, everybody was funny, but John Larroquette never failed to make me laugh as this perverse lawyer, always scheming. But you want to talk about the episode that you were in?
Well, it's about 100 years ago that I did that. I just remembered that I did the show. I don't remember anything about it really, except, it was something else I did. It's rare, that unless somebody drops dead or does something weird, it's another job that you go on and you enjoy meeting the people and you did it, but then, next. And so I really don't remember anything about it. I mean, I remember seeing it, and so I remember what it was about and so forth, but I don't have any tales to tell.
And of course, you were in moonlighting. I bring that up because we mentioned Chiller in passing. When I went to Chiller, it was the first signing that Sybil Shepherd had done. They had
Oh,
her
wow.
there.
Surprised that she did that. That's interesting.
I went and met her.
There must have been zillions of people ready to see her.
Yeah, I went and met her. You could tell she was just dipping her toe into this. This was new ground for her. But um, I went and I met her. I got her laughing though because I went up and I picked a photo off her table. And I walked up, I introduced myself, I gave her my card. Um, I always do that to see people come on my show, but anyway, I loved her in Taxi Driver and whatnot. And I got her laughing because I said to her, I said, I remember you in Moonlighting. And I remember you in another show, but I can't remember the name. I guess it was the show Sybil now. But I said, I remember there was an episode of Moonlighting where you got a pie in the face. And I said, how many times in your career have you done that? And she goes, once. She goes, once. And I said, in Moonlighting. And I said, yeah, but didn't you do another one where you were in part of a show where you were holding yourself up by the hair and you let your face just drop in this pie that you had in your hand? And she grins at me and sticks her hand up and she goes, you're right.
Was the other thing? What was the other one?
I believe it was her show Sybil or the
Oh, on
sitcom.
Sybil. On
Yeah.
Sybil. Yeah.
And somebody, her handler was taking photos during the whole thing, not just when we're posing together. And he got a shot of her sticking her finger up like this with that grin on her face where I have brought that up. And I think it really loosened her up a little bit, because this was something new to her. And I think she just loved that I touched into something so niche like that. And she was wonderful to meet. And I hope she does more of those. Um, but I thought, I gotta go meet Sybil Shepherd, well, she's there. And but you said you were at Chiller. Uh, do you get to do many conventions?
Now and again, now and again, that particular chiller, it just happened that I was in the booth right next to Dean Kane, and of course we had done Lois and Clark together, so that was really fun and made it an extra fun experience. And the other one that I really remember and liked is the one that's in Metropolis. There's a Comic Con in Metropolis that's all Superman, all of the iterations of Superman, and that's really fun. And they've got statues all over the place. It's a really fun place to go to.
I've had Jack O'Halloran on here twice, who was in Superman 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And he really spoke highly of working with Richard Donner. I love those first two Superman movies. Um, and I think Christopher Reeves was a great Superman, but I think Dean Cain was a great Superman as well.
They've all been great. I don't think I could point to, and there's a new one. I just
Yeah, we
saw
got no
it
one
the other
coming.
day.
Yeah, I got no criticism towards any of the Supermen, but I remember seeing Superman 1 and 2 at the drive-in here when we had them. So I guess I
Was
got
that
that
your first,
memory.
was that your first Superman?
Yeah,
See, I think the first Superman you ever saw is the one that's like your Superman. The other ones are good, but this is my Superman. That's how I feel about A Star is Born. Like my Star is Born was the Judy Garland Star is Born, and I don't care about all these other Stars Born. Don't even talk to me about them because Judy Garland was a Star is Born. So I think whichever one is your Superman that you saw first is your favorite Superman.
I can't fault you on that. Judy Garland was awesome.
She was
Went
great.
way too soon, mind you, but she was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is a question I always ask all my guests. What's the most unique thing you've ever been asked to sign?
To sign. Oh, this is so great. So I was at Metropolis actually. And in Metropolis, we were in this kind of L-shaped room where people come in down here and they probably see over people and then they come down here. We saw these people come in and there seemed to kind of be conversation so that when these people got here, kind of everybody was kind of looking to see what was here. And so this woman came and she said that she was going to come with her husband, but that he had died. So she brought him. She had his ashes and she wanted me to sign his ashes, which I did. And I didn't think it was weird at all, but everybody else was like, oh my God. And I was just like, that's so nice. And I just signed them.
You know what? I bet you her husband would have been honored.
Oh, well, I was.
Yeah.
Even so,
Actually, I
he
think that's
managed to
really
get
cool
there.
that
Yeah, it
she
was
made him
great.
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was great.
Wow, I'd never heard of that. Brought her husband's. I like the fact that she made her husband part of that.
Well, he had been the driving core of them being fans and being there, and he was a big Superman fan. And anyway, I just thought it was really nice. And the whole family was there. I signed the box and then we all took a picture together with it.
Oh, wow. That is it. I never heard one like this
Yeah.
before. Yeah. Did anybody else in the cast sign it?
Well, there wasn't anybody else there from my cast.
Oh, okay.
It
So
was
that was,
bunches of this was other people who had been, in Superboy and Super whatever, and I was the only one there from our show. They'd all been there before. Dean had been to Metropolis 3 or 4 times, and Terry had been there a couple of times.
yeah. I guess you had a great working relationship with Dean Kane. I think, what was it like working with Terry Hatcher?
I love Terry too. Terry and I did great together.
Yeah, yeah, she made a great Lois Lane, and I always, of course, remember Margot Kidder. But you know what? Terry Hatcher took nothing away from that. So,
Well, the thing is that Terry got to develop it more. I mean, Margot was just in the film, which was
yep,
just a one-time thing. And then Superman went forward, and then we got to see Lois in all these different situations. And I thought Terry did a great job.
I think
Terry's
so
a
too.
she's a really good actress, and she's very appealing. She's very appealing. You just innately like her. She's warmer than Margot was. She has
Hmm.
a warmer personality.
Yeah, yes. Well, you get to develop that too, of course, over a series like that. So,
Yeah.
so
But I mean, she just innately brings that to it.
yeah.
She has that warmth to her persona, and Margot's a little chillier.
So, would you say that Lois and Clark is the biggest thing you're known for?
I think so. I think so. A lot of people, well, I was in a very popular, iconic episode of All in the Family that they won an Emmy for that's called Cousin Liz. And
Uh-huh.
people stopped me all over the world about that because that was such a unique and interesting show. Norman Lear, All in the Family. So a lot of people know that. A lot of people because of what that character was and what that particular episode was.
Yeah, I used to watch All the Family growing up, and
You can
they
see that episode on YouTube. If you look for Cousin Liz, you'll see the episode.
I didn't bring it up here because I know there was different because you got that listed here for 1977 here on IMDb, but
Yeah.
I know it started in 70
Oh,
or 71.
yeah. All in the Family started before that. I didn't move to LA until 76. So I did that and a bunch of shows for Norman Lear after I moved here.
Yeah, so you play a character named Veronica Cartwright.
Yes.
There's an actress named Veronica Cartwright
Right.
who was in The Birds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Alien and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I think that's funny. I just noticed that here. I watch like, All in the Family was way ahead of its time. Uh, that paved the way for things like Married with Children and Roseanne
Well, that
and
was all Married with Children was out of Norman Lear's that whole thing. And then but Roseanne was at least 10 years later, I think.
no, Roseanne came out the year before Married with Children. The Married with Children came out.
Really?
Yeah. Married with
What
Children,
year, what year did Roseanne come out?
I believe it was 86, if I remember
And
correctly.
and Married with Children was after that?
Yeah, 87. It went from 87 to 97. I remember because Married with Children was one of those sitcoms like Night Court. I watched. Those were timeless shows for me. Married with Children, I laughed at so much because I related to the characters, you know, like the lead character being a failed shoe salesman. You don't see that in a lot of these movies. So it's something I see these characters one way or another out and around somewhere. And relatability is a big thing when it comes to these. Now, Night Court, I couldn't relate to, but because I've never been to court, but I always enjoyed seeing the various people going in there to be represented, you know, people going to court and but I enjoyed shows like that. But yeah, All's in the Family was a show I remember. Carol O'Connor as Archie Bunker. Like, I mean, like I've heard great things about him as a person, but Archie Bunker was such a polarizing character. It caused the controversy and whatnot. Do you have any
think he,
stories?
I don't think he was so polarizing because I think people who were conservative thought he was right and a hero, and the people who were more liberal just thought he was silly and funny. And I think everybody found something to like in that. So I don't think he was so controversial. So that I don't think he ever made anybody mad, which is what controversial means to me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, yeah, you are correct, you know.
Yeah, they
Um,
showed both sides, because Edith and Archie, that because of her point of view and his point of view, they had a chance to discuss both sides of things in a way that was not polarizing, that a way that allowed people to listen to things, which was what was so great about it.
you want me to tell you what's fun though? Um, like I said, I'm going to be 53 this year, and I get people that ask me because I was born in 1972, and people say, I've had people ask me, you remember anything about the 70s? And I have a few memories, from the 70s. Spent my first 7 years there, but one of the fun thing is being able to go back and watch something like All's in the Family or your any of your sitcoms and whatnot that came out then, and you can see that period of time just by the way they're dressed or the way their hair is and what, and it doesn't get old for me, you know. I was at a friend's house a few years ago. We were watching a, just an onslaught of reruns of the Mary Tyler Moore Show,
What a
and it was
great
just we
show.
just yeah, and we're just letting these come through and come through, and we're like, man, this is the way people were dressed back then, and we enjoyed it, you know. And there's a lot of this I remember growing up, you know. And then you look at the 80s, and the 90s, and I hear a lot of people say to me, here's a story out of Toronto. I hear people all the time tell me, they say they wish it was back like in the 80s or wish it was back in the 70s, and I'm like, you know what, there's a lot
You,
of great.
you think you do.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I lived the 70s, I lived the 80s, I lived the 90s, and I have some great memories. And I agree. I love the music of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I love the music scene. And I have a lot of great memories growing up. However, and I did a video of this when I was in Toronto before the pandemic. I was talking into my phone, I doing a video. I said, to all you people that wish you could go back and live in the 80s, I got something to say to you. I just made a wrong turn out of a mall here and got lost. Back in the 80s, I would have panicked. Right now, I'm following this little red line as I'm talking to you, getting to where I need to go. That is one of the big differences. We got these little pocket computers called our phone. And, I'm just following it, getting to where I need to go. I said, you guys have no idea how good you have it. you know? And I was pointing that out because people don't know, you know?
Well,
So,
it's always good to count your blessings.
yeah. But I mean, I've got the memories, there's I wasn't around in the 50s and 60s, but there's a lot of movies that come out in those times that I love, you know? So, I mean, Hitchcock was a big thing for me when he changed the way I look at film. And when I was born in 72, I mean, Frenzy came out just before I was born, and then Family Plot, and then he was gone in 80. His granddaughter said that he was toying around with another film idea, but by that time, he was kind of getting up there. But um, nonetheless, a lot of his films, but just all of my favorite ones, were before my time. So I love the fact I can go back and I can look at that and look at, especially ones that are shot in locations. You could see what it looked like, you know. And sometimes today they get it right. Like Boogie Nights captured the 70s beautifully. But I hate it when something's set at a certain time and you can't feel it. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas captured the 70s, and you could have a really good filmmaker, really good art director, and somebody that knows what they're doing to capture that correctly. I love it when they do, but I love it when I can just go back and take a look at that. And we mentioned All's in the Family, and that's like one of those sitcoms you could go back to, and it's like it looked awfully simple to look at it, but it's like I kind of remember those simpler times. I mean, today we don't have telephones that attached to something. I remember those. My parents still have an 8-track machine. Got a lot of dust on it, mind you, but outside Lois and Clark, The Adventures of Superman, is there any other television that really stands out to you that were some of the work that like going over your career that were highlights for you?
Well, actually, when you started that sentence, I didn't know where it was going, and I thought you were just going to say shows that I watched, and I just loved the Dick Van Dyke Show. I used to, my husband and I used to watch that, and if one of us wasn't home when the other one got home, we would act out the show for them because we thought it was so funny. And I just think about, I mean, I remember when there wasn't television. And then I remember I grew up in Texas, and I remember when, maybe one person on the block had a TV and everybody would go over there and watch. And when there were like only like two shows on, and one was Broadway Open House, which was like at 11 o'clock at night. And then I remember when I moved to New York, and at the beginning of that, there was only black and white. But then I remembered when color came and what a big deal that was. And just the whole metamorphosis of television and also of just film and entertainment and the means of delivery, because that's what continues to change. I mean, when I was little, it was movies. And before then, it was like vaudeville, and I remember you'd go to the movies and there'd be vaudeville shows that would be coming through town, and you would see a movie and then you would see a vaudeville show. Sometimes it was like a very special thing. But, then the way the movie continues to evolve, and now the streamers, which are really great, but I really feel bad about the fact that people don't think about going to the movies, going out to the movies, which used to be such a treat, and is still to go and experience a movie in a theater with other people is really different than sitting in your living room, even if you have a giant TV screen. It's just really different what the other energy in the place brings to it. And for instance, there was a time when I'm a member of the Motion Picture Academy, so
Yep.
we vote. And so there was a time when there were no DVDs, there were no anything, you saw everything in the movies. And then I remember when we first got the DVDs, and then for a while I would just look at the DVDs and then I didn't go see them. And there was one film that I saw that I thought, yeah, it's okay. And then for some reason I needed to go see it again in the movie theater. And it was a totally different experience. I love the movie. And the thing is that when it's on the small screen, even if it's a big screen in your living room, there are just things you don't see. The screen is so vast, and there are storytelling objects in the scene that you wouldn't see, in this smaller situation. I'm trying to remember what it was this year that I saw, and then I looked at again. And it's also so interesting to see a movie the second time, because the first time, for me anyway, I'm following the story, and that's the most important thing to me. But then when I see it again, I have the luxury of just relaxing my concentration and allow it to see other things. The first time through, if I'm in the story, there could be a boom hanging in it and I wouldn't even see it because I'm so focused on the story. So I just think the thing that is so interesting is the evolution of the means of delivery, plus whatever you see on the screen and all the added new things we're able to see and create and so forth. So it's really interesting. There's a book called Sapiens. I don't know whether you know that book. It's called A History of Mankind. And it's really interesting. It goes all the way back to the beginning of everything. And it talks about language and how language evolved and how animals have a language too. But their language, they can say, hey, there's a lion over there. And they could lie, but they're still saying there's a lion over there. Human beings might say there's a lion over there, but human beings also really love stories. So the monkey is not going to say somebody slept with somebody else, but a human being will. And that's why we like movies and books and television, because we like stories. I really love stories.
It's interesting you say that because I my TV, I just watch my Blu-rays on it. However, I try to go to the movies once a week. I was at the movie theater yesterday. I watched Companion with Sophie Thatcher. But I believe that, like, I think it's a mistake to release movies in theaters and on streaming the same time. I think there should be at least a 90-day window in there. When the pandemic happened, I was frustrated because I couldn't wait to get back in the theater. I never caught COVID. I worked through it, but as a cleaner, it was just another day for me. But it was annoyance, I had to have the card and had the mask up and all that stuff. But I couldn't wait to get back. I was back in the movie theater for selected seating by July.
Wow, good. I
Yeah.
didn't know there was such a thing. I don't think we had that here.
Yeah, they would only allow so many people in. And I remember they were playing some classic films as well. And I went to pretty much every one of them. I mean, and some of them, those classic films I have right here, but seeing it up there on the big screen's like seeing it live.
Yeah.
Now, when I was in Toronto for Frightmare in the Falls back in October, I was in Toronto for a week and I went to a lot of movies and a lot of different theaters. They had a theater there called the Carlton, Imagine Cinemas. They had movies there for $5, like classic movies on for $5. And I went there almost every night I was there. And I saw the original Halloween. I saw The Exorcist. I saw the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I saw Clue. It's like, and some of those I've seen many times on the big screen, but I'm like, yeah, I'm going back to see this. But I also went to some other films. Like I saw Nora at the Varsity. I went to TIFF Lightbox and saw Rumors, a Canadian film shot. And I went to TIFF Lightbox. And then I went to Dundas for the 10th anniversary of It Follows, which I hadn't seen. And I went down there and got my ticket, said Theater 14. I've never, like, we got a 10 screener here. I was like, 14 theaters? It's like, I've never been to one this big. Discovered there's 24 screens there.
Wow.
I got my co-star here. Look at this. Oh, look at this. This is
Uh,
Skittles. Skittles? Skittles, speaking of lions, Skittles is related to the King of Beast. But he's very lazy. Do you have any pets?
not right now. I've had lots of cats, and my kids take up the slack. One daughter has five cats, and one daughter has two cats. And my son and his wife have two. So we're well represented.
Skittles approves of the multiple cats. Skills is my buddy. Yeah, but yeah, I still try to go to the movies every week. In fact, my brother had to borrow my car yesterday, and theater was only about a 20-minute walk away, so I walked to the theater and went and saw this movie and then walked back, got my exercise. But I always try to go to the movie theater. And when I'm in Toronto, they've got so many different theaters there and so many ways to see even classic movies. Like I remember one year I contacted Lisa and I said they have a double screening at I think it was the Royal Theater. They're playing White Christmas and Black Christmas. And she wasn't interested in White Christmas, but Black Christmas was shot in Toronto. So she said she'd meet me for that, so I got her a ticket. Now, White Christmas had a decent size audience, but Black Christmas was packed, and I've interviewed a few people from that movie. I love Black Christmas. But we watched that there, and but I have been to that's one of the big reasons I want to move to Toronto. So many different theaters there, and seeing some of these movies that are screened. Like, to me, I often say to people, seeing movies on the big screen is like seeing it live. And people often, I've seen these polls on Facebook, if you could go back in time to see a movie when it came out, I was like, you know what? You can't really go back in time to see a movie come out, but you can, if you're in the right place in the right time, see a movie on the big screen. I was 1 years old when The Exorcist came out. I didn't see it in 1973, but I've seen it 6 times on the big screen. I still think that counts every bit as much as it did back then. And I've got it here on Blu-ray. I've seen it many times, but I still went and saw it in Toronto. I'll still do that. I love supporting theater. And I have to say to people, it's like going to see it. It's like seeing it live. And anytime you get a chance to see one of these movies on the big screen, take it. I got introduced to IMAX in Toronto back in 2019. I went there and I saw Apocalypse Now on
Oh,
IMAX.
wow.
I love Apocalypse Now. It's my favorite war film. I saw the Redux version when it came out, and I figured, well, if I'm gonna go to IMAX for the first time, Apocalypse Now is a great choice of movie to see. So I still support going to the movie theater. So, you know, how often do you go to the theater? Do you still go to the theater?
Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm at the movies at least once or twice a week.
Oh, nice. See anything interesting lately?
I saw Nora again. I've seen a couple of things again because I'm getting ready to vote and I want to refresh myself. So I've seen a bunch of
I
things.
enjoyed Honora. I saw that the Varsity. At the time, I didn't know who Mikey Madison was. And I'm sitting there thinking, then when I looked her up, I'm like, okay, no wonder I didn't recognize her in Honora. She wasn't on fire. Because in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Scream, what, six, she's lit on fire in both of them. I'm like, oh, okay, minus the flames.
Now I recognize her.
I gotta say, the tone was a bit off on Honora, but I love the fact that it exceeded my expectations because the thugs in the movie, I was a little fearful and wondered, like, she's so small, is she going to get it? Is she in big trouble? Jeepers, the thugs were in more trouble than she was, and I got such a kick
She was
out of the
hilarious.
thugs.
Yeah.
The one thing that took me away, though, I did not like the boyfriend.
Oh,
I
tell me about that. Wow.
I was like, man, I was waiting for the boyfriend to get his comeuppance because obviously he does something very wrong. And but I
But
got nothing
you
against the act.
didn't like the character, you didn't like the actor
Well,
because
I
the
had nothing against
boyfriend
the
was
actor.
not
I'm talking about
likable.
I'm talking about the character.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because it's funny because the thugs were more likable than him.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
Well, because he didn't care about anybody, and the thugs were just trying to save their butts. It's like we're gonna lose our jobs. What are you doing to us? And he was just a spoiled rich kid.
Oh, I got such a kick out of it when they're in the vehicle, and the guy throws up the vehicle and he's like cursing at him, trying to clean it out. I
Well, and
laughed.
he has to leave the baptism.
Yes, I
Poor
had the
guy. He's at the
biggest.
baptism and he keeps getting the phone calls. It's like I have to go. I'm sorry.
I had the biggest kick out of that, and I really, really enjoyed the dynamic between her and uh I'm, I
Igor.
yeah, I love
Igor
that.
got nominated. The guy who played Igor got nominated for an
I'm
Academy.
glad he did. And it's I thought he was interesting too, because there comes a point in the film where uh he's trying to touch her and she freaks out. And at the time I thought, is he trying to strangle her?
He was just trying to calm her down.
And it's kind of like, no, he just kind of wanted to touch her. And I found that so interesting. It's like when she just kind of collapses and gives up, it's like, you know what? This guy, it really works on my mind. It's like these guys were not at all.
They were just nice guys that were supposed to keep this kid from getting in trouble.
She
How
kept
hard could
beating
it
them up.
be, right?
I enjoyed Honora a lot. Best of luck to Mikey Madison, but I'm really hoping Demi Moore wins for The Substance.
I'd be happy, but if she won, I thought Carlo Garcon, whatever her name is, from Amelia was incredible, incredible. Did you see the film?
No, we haven't got it here.
You really got to see that. That's an amazing film. Is it not on Netflix?
Yeah, but as I said, my TV's just set up to watch my Blu-ray, so I don't have Netflix.
You can't get to it. You could watch it on your computer.
Probably, I never thought of that,
For
but
sure you could. You'd have to subscribe to Netflix, but you could subscribe to it for a month and see a million things that would just blow your head off. There's so many good things to see. You can watch it on your computer. You should do that
yeah.
because it's such an interesting, bizarre, and hopefully you haven't read anything about it and could just come to it raw like I did and have such an amazing experience as the story unfolds.
I guess my thing with Demi Moore is this is number one. I think with The Substance, I think it's the greatest work I've seen her do. You know, I
You can still vote for Demi Moore, but you should see this other story.
yeah, but I was blown away by Demi Moore's performance in that, and Margaret Qualley was so good in it. I'm sad she didn't get nominated, and of course, Dennis Quaid was hysterical in it. But The Substance is not the typical film you'd expect nominated at the Academy. And
Well, the film's not nominated, but she's nominated. But
oh yeah, the film's up for Best Picture.
is it up for best film?
Yeah,
Really? I'm
yeah.
pretty sure because you know all these things, but I don't remember that it is. I just have to look at my list.
But I
I'm gonna
loved
believe you.
Demi Moore in that, and I was like, man, that's quite the comeback for her. You want me to tell you though, last year's Oscars, I was so happy because I'm a huge Emma Stone fan, so I was happy to see her win her second Oscar. I've had a crush on Emma Stone since 2007 with Superbad.
It's amazing the depth of her work that she did La La Land and then
Yeah,
she did that. I mean, she has such an amazing career.
yeah. Emma Stone, I could watch her read the phone book, like I saw Poor Things in Toronto when I was there visiting because we didn't get it here, but I was in Toronto and I got to see it there. And
So you don't get everything there? Well, no wonder you have to move to Toronto.
yeah, yeah. We get a 10 screen theater, and yet we'll get one film that plays on three or four screens. And I'm like, stop that, because there's a lot of times if I don't see advertising for a film, chances are I'll go to it, you know, because it's like I don't know anything about this, so I'm gonna go in.
I like not knowing. I like
Yeah,
discovering.
yeah. So, but I. Like we didn't get Kinds of Kindness here, but Moncton got it. So I drove to Moncton to see that because
I don't know what kinds of kindness is.
Emma Stone working with Yargos again.
This year?
That's no, yeah, it was last year. And
But last year was
2024, yeah.
no, but what you just mentioned, the other film that she did for him, that she won for.
Poor Things was 2023.
Oh, 23. I see. Well,
Yeah. And then Kinds of Kindness she did last year. I drove to uh, about 90 minutes to Moncton just to go see that. And I said to the people working there, I said, I want you to thank Emma Stone for because I drove 90 minutes to see her today,
wow.
but we didn't get it here and I was disappointed. It was my birthday weekend, so I thought, I'm gonna go see this,
When's your
so
birthday?
July 8th.
Oh, it's so July. I'm gonna write that
Yeah,
down and look it up.
yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of great performers out there now. You've worked with so many actors, so many talents. Who are the ones that made the biggest impressions on you working with? Either whether it's advice they gave you, whether the experience was just, oh man, they were so wonderful to work with, or like any actors that stand out to you that,
Oh golly, I've worked with so many people. It's hard to quantify that. There's so many different people for many different reasons. Um, I don't think so. I mean, there are people that I've stayed friends with and been in touch with and so on. It's just it's such a gift for any actor when they get a chance to work. You
yeah,
know, you make such a nice family of people when you are working. It's a real gift.
yeah. Well, we'll come full circle here because, like I said, Knives Out, 2019. I saw that in the theater, and like I said, I hear a lot of people talk about that now, and I think I hear more people talk about it now than I did when it came to the theater. So,
It did very well in the theaters, though.
yeah,
It
yeah,
stayed for a long time and it would have stayed longer. But then I read this story about Ted Sarandos, who is head of Netflix, and how he grew up in a family that did not go to the movies because his father was sick. And so they watched movies at home. And so he doesn't have any affection for seeing movies in a theater. He actually wants to stamp out theaters because he's Netflix and he doesn't do theaters, although they own several theaters here in LA where they will show their films. But anyway, Knives Out stayed in the theaters for a long time, and then they pulled it and went ahead and showed it on streaming, and they left a lot of money on the table because the longer a movie stays in the theaters, the more money they make in streaming because it has more cachet. But as I heard the story, which doesn't make any sense to me because I think Amazon Prime is where Knives Out really showed, and Netflix is Serranos. So I don't really know. But anyway, that's what I heard. But anyway, it's done very well, and it was just such a clever and original, not original because it's based on these kinds of films from the past, and also Poker Face, his television series. He's kind of modeled it on what was Peter Falk's show. He's modeled it because it's like a murder of the week kind of
yeah.
show with a quirky lead character.
I feel bad that he wants to stomp out theaters. I think if theaters die, that's sad.
They're not going to die because people like going. There are many people that it's still an event, and oh boy, we're going
Yeah.
to the movies, and there's so many big ones like Wicked, was incredible in the movie theater. And I saw it in a movie theater, and then I went back to see it in IMAX because there was just so much to see that I wanted to see it on that big screen. And I
Well,
think young people, although young people spend more money going to see music things than they go to see movies in theater.
well, when I was in Toronto, I think I must have saw somewhere handy to about 10 movies. while I was there. And a lot of it for me, I mean, that I selected the movies I wanted to see, obviously, for that experience. But a lot of it too, like I got the one theater here, but in Toronto, I had so many different theaters to go to. So it was such a different experience.
Well, it's a different thing when you're a tourist in a town and you got to gobble it all up while you're there. I think people who live in a town where there's lots of movies, they take it for granted. And it's like, yeah, I'll get around to it, but they don't. I remember last summer there were a whole bunch of things that were coming out every week that I wanted to see, and I was always looking to see what it was so I could go. And then the afternoons, there's not that many people there. You kind of have your own private screening room sometimes.
Yeah, so I like that too. So what kind of projects you got coming up that you're able to talk about?
I'm not really able to talk about anything.
Well, I think it's wonderful and inspiring that you're still working, and you're still active. Um, Tommy told me that you are very wise.
Oh, really? That was
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So I'm glad he connected me with you. I had a lot of fun going down through memory lane with some of these film and television, and you worked at a time where I watched a lot of these shows on TV. So, but
Well, I've
yeah,
been really happy to meet you, and I look forward to having you write me and say you're now in Toronto.
I hope to make that move. I
Put
hope
a
to make it.
deadline on it. You need to say make a date and just say that's when it's going, and then you'll kind of start thinking towards that.
Well, my lease up for my apartment at the end of April, so I'm not gonna be able to do it by then. And plus, with the job I have right now, I want to be able to accumulate more money to,
Yeah.
you
You're going to
yeah,
go do a new thing like that. It's going to be expensive to move and you need to be prepared for it. So maybe
yeah,
it's a year from now or whatever. But anyway, if you just have something that you're moving towards, then you'll probably get to do it more than if you just say, well, it's not right now, but it's later. But when you make a later, and then you go, oh my God, it's 3 months away.
yeah. So yeah, it's something I'd like to do. I love Toronto. Toronto, I wouldn't have to have a car because the transit system is so good. So you know, but I'm working, so I'm able to put some money away and yeah. And I still go to the movie theater because I think it's awesome. Plus, I have my collection of movies here for when I have a rainy day. So there you go. Anyway, it was wonderful having you come on here today. I was going to ask,
And
do you have any charities that you want to plug and promote on here
Well, actually, the charity I give to here is a homeless charity. It's local. It's the Catholic Worker, and they really take care of the people in Skid Row and stuff like that. And I'm really concerned about the homeless situation.
yeah, we got it here too.
Yeah, we
Uh,
all it's all over the place. I don't really know what to think about it because it seems to be a worldwide situation that wasn't always thus. It would be interesting to go back and see when it was different. I do believe that before we all here considered that Ronald Reagan, when he was the governor of California, kind of made all this start happening here because he closed all the mental hospitals and sent a lot of people out on the streets that would have been taken care of otherwise. So I don't know, and I don't know what the answer is, but we can only do as much as we can do and be aware and compassionate.
yeah, absolutely. Well, before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Sure. But what
Yeah,
do I
just
need to do?
just state your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kay Callan, and I'm listening to Greg.
Gilbert.
Okay, I'm listening to Greg Gilbert's. See, I can't remember that much. I'm just going to say I'm Kay Callan, and I'm listening to Greg's Python podcast.
Yeah, sure. That'll work.
I got it. That's it.
Yep. Yep, go for it.
No, I already did it.
Oh,
All right, I'm Kay Callan, and I'm listening to Greg's podcast.
Yeah, I kind of lost the signal there on that one. Anyway, you know what? It was wonderful having you come on here today, and congratulations on the longevity of your career that you were predicting since you were 5 years old.
Absolutely. And I'm very grateful. I'm very lucky and very grateful. And thank you. It was really nice meeting you and hearing all your thoughts about all the movies.
You know what? I hope you get to a convention up this way, or if I ever get down there, I don't know when I'll be to the States at one again. Because, like I said, where I work, the two jobs, at the time when I went to Chiller, I was only doing one. So,
Wow, 3 jobs in a row all night long. You really work hard for your money.
yeah. But I try to make it to Toronto every year because I love it there. But anyway, I hope to you get to do a convention up this way.
I hope so too. I hope so. Maybe our paths will cross.
Oh, I hope so. But in the meantime, I'm honored to have had you on here. So this was fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you take care. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.